Fresh off a flight coming over from the airport, Chicago, now in Southern California. Hank Greening is producer, APP Tour Television. APP, one of the best when it comes to pickleball and what they are doing across this country. And they've got a humongous event coming up here through July 2nd to 6th. It's the Newport Open. We're going to talk about that, the broadcasting angle of it as well, and so much more. This is On to Something. I'm Bryan Fenley, and this is a sports media podcast. Hank, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
The way in which pickleball is ingested from a viewer standpoint is unlike any other sport beyond the rules of the sport. From a producer's lens, what challenges do producing this sport present different than any other?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's honestly, I think the number one problem that we try to tackle. I think with so many other sports, especially in the realm of sport that we want to be considered with any of the four majors in this country, and then beyond that to tennis and things like that. I think it's not only are we introducing players, but we're introducing a sport and we're introducing a league, and we're trying to change like the perspective of pickleball and sports and how we adjust them in this country. I think every football, basketball game that you watch on name your network, it's very formulaic, and you feel like you've seen it a million times, and everybody follows the same formula. Well, we don't really have that basis. There's no long history of broadcast with pickleball, so we try to think differently, but we also we juggle much like, golf in some ways, the boom of golf. We juggle these diehard fans of the sport who play every single day and folks who have never even seen the sport played before. So it's a great challenge and dichotomy of how can we introduce the viewer to this sport, but also not dumb it down so much for the fans who have been here since the get-go. We're also in new venues every week. I feel like there's a new venue that opens every day in this country, and none of them are the same in layout, whether it's a converted tennis facility or a brand new pickleball facility like we built down at the Fort in Fort Lauderdale. There are unique challenges with every single venue that we go to, and how to best broadcast the sport. And that means different angles for every venue. We try to replicate just to get folks familiar with our program. But every venue has its own challenges, and every place that we go to is unique, and we try to show off the best that our tour stops have to offer, whether it's the venue themselves or the city that we go to. So no event is the same, and we kind of like it that way. We get to be a little bit different with every event that we think about.
With that said, venue-wise, pickleball, a smaller court than tennis, obviously, but there could be in terms of covering it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way in which it's consumed is different, although the court is just a little bit bigger with tennis. So when you say think differently in regards to how you're piecing together broadcasts and thinking outside the box, specifically between tennis and pickleball, where does pickleball stand out, and where do they like to push the envelope in a cool way to try new things compared to maybe a traditionalist who watches tennis?
I think the best part about the courts that we play on and the venues that we go to, because they're small, we have incredible access to players. I think being able to get right up in the game, like in that kitchen spot, being so close to the action, is something that you don't get in tennis. Everything in tennis is so wide. You watch Wimbledon is on right now, and you watch it and how far away the cameras are, and it's because the courts are so large. And you want to show, how agile these players are in getting end line to end line. Pickleball players are just as agile. I think they can absolutely get around the courts just fine. They all have a great background in tennis for the most part. But being able to be so close to the action, you can really dissect every movement. You can tell by the sound of the ball how it was hit. What strategy is being used by the players, watching the footwork so much more closely. So I think just being so close to the action allows us to dissect it in a way that it's harder maybe for tennis, even with maybe smaller coverage in general. But also, there's no rules with the broadcast of it, so we really can, we can discuss with our rules officials and our organization, and we can feel like, hey, can we get a camera on a wire somewhere? How can we cover it from over the top? Things that may never be allowed in an old school tennis mentality. Maybe we can try to cover with pickleball and try to, reinvent some ideas here. So I think nothing is off the table with our group. We have a really strong background of broadcast. I have some great support with our VP of production, John Paquette, and our coordinating producer, John Graff. Tons of years of experience with ABC and CBS in the NFL and college football spaces, and with my experiences over at ESPN in the NHL, college football, and you name it. We're able to kind of say, well, we did it like this with football, basketball, with the other thing. What if we tried to push the envelope and do something a little bit different with our access? And so that's really what we're trying to do is take of our experience and know what works, but also, try some new stuff out because, there's no rules right now in broadcasting for pickleball.
If I'm watching APP Tour television or coming up with the Newport Open, and you're going to have some coverage on ESPN2 as well, and the likes of so many stars, Jack Monroe and Sophia Sewing, and many others that are going to be taking the forefront, how will I know that it's Hank Greening producing this event? Or what is it stylistically that you feel like as a producer you like to do to stand apart and to know that while watching that it would be something that you're behind?
Think, I come from a background of graphics. That was something that I worked in a lot in my previous roles. And so I try to really, I try to insert as much information graphically as I can that maybe is a little bit different. We have a growing database of our players and our records, and we're trying to push the envelope with, some data maybe down the line with service errors and things like that. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on it. So I really try to look at past results. I try to inform the viewer as much as possible, and not in like kind of how I talked about earlier, not in the way that's going to, dumb it down or insult a fan who's been around for a long time, but inform everybody about, why this player is so great. I also like to look at, so many of these players. Are private citizens, right? So like there's not a lot of information that's available on them, and not in an intrusive way, but I just want to, let the audience know like, hey, this player, Megan Fudge, for example, played college tennis at Illinois. How can I relate those players who are, someone's never met before to, oh, I went to Illinois, or, we have players who played at Wisconsin and Texas and all over the country, and they have some sort of connection to either these regions where they now live, or universities where they played, or we try to find the fun things in what they do, maybe what they like to do off the court. So I really try to personalize these players as much as possible because they're all great people, and being so close to them and getting to know a few of them pretty well over the years has been so much fun. And I just try to introduce the players to this country and this country to the players. Like I want people to be invested in the sport. And I think the best way to do that is through, getting to know a little bit of personal information about, these people that might be a connection point for someone watching at home.
What would you do in terms of rating the excitement of, like you said, these are people in our community that are also very good at pickleball, but they might have other jobs, they might have families, and that is relatable. Where if I'm watching something in the NFL and I want to do a piece on a player, there's a gazillion different articles and blog posts about said person from the Associated Press. I hope pickleball gets to that and it's on its way in terms of visibility and media attention. But to be able to uncover a unique story about a player that you can't find anywhere, that he or she is finally opening up to, that you can feature, how much is that what drives you to what you do, to find those stories that have never been told before and that are going to resonate with your audience?
I think, we all come from this background of storytelling, right? Like that's why we all get in it for one reason or another. If you boil it all the way down from, the Super Bowl to, your local newspaper, it's all about storytelling, and it's all about how can we find connection points, for our viewer and for our fans. And I think that's what drives people to sport, right? Like, how can I connect with this player, whether it's the playing style on a much, greater level and other, places, but it comes down to like, what's my hometown? Is it the same as this guy? Does he come from my home state? Did he play at the university that I like? Does he have the same interests? And so I don't know how to really say like what it is that drives it, but I think it's just looking for connection points with people and finding common ground. Like that's what I love to do. Like anytime you're meeting someone for the first time, like you try to find a commonality. And so that's really what we're doing. We're introducing these people to a huge audience for the first time. How can we make them relatable? How can we make a viewer say, yeah, I'll come back to that? Or, oh, I wonder how this person did in the next event, further down the line. So, another thing to mention is that we have such great talent. Dorian Kraft, Dom Catalano, Chad Edwards. They're incredible at what they do. They know the players so well, whether it's on a coaching side like Dom and Chad, or Dorian, who's a great journalist, and she's always looking for an extra edge, with a story to tell and learning. Like, our talent has no problem with talking with the players because they're friends with the players. They've been on road trips with the players. They go out to dinner with the players, not because they're trying to do their job, but just because they're friends, because they're in this community. And, pickleball is such an incredible community where, we have the pros and the amateurs separated maybe by division and where they play. But it's not uncommon to see pros and amateurs alike hanging out at the snack shack after, or grabbing a beer, after their matches for the day. It's really we like to joke about it as a traveling circus, and we're coming to your city, right? But it's so much more than just your run of the mill. Like it's just another sporting event where games being played and they go home and pack it up. Like we're ingrained in these communities, and we become friends with the people that are local to Newport. So when we come back to Newport, it's great to see the same faces over and over again. And so just that whole idea of community through pickleball is it's a fabric of the sport. Truly. Community, I think if you ask most people what defines pickleball from tennis, it's an inclusive community. And so I think, from my end, obviously I want to be a journalist and a good broadcaster and document what we're doing, but you'd be remiss in covering the sport if you didn't bring up the community and try to introduce these people to a larger audience because that's what they do in every event they go to locally. So I think that's really what the force is. It's not because I need to do it or want to do it, but it's just a part of the sport, and it's impossible not to become a part of the community once you're here.
That communal spirit I picked up when Dom Catalano came on with me, and you could just feel how much passion that he and your broadcast team have. And when you're pre-planning these broadcasts, whether it's on APP Tour TV or it's linear, ESPN, CBS as well. I know you guys have relationships with both of those networks. Energy in selling the product to like you said, you're dealing with people who are regularly playing this sport. They can't get enough of it, and you're also trying to introduce a new sect of people. The energy level that you want your broadcasters to convey, how do you want that to sell the product and get more people involved?
Yeah, it's so funny because I think there's a stigma around pickleball that's just flat out untrue. The youth injection into the sport is incredible. More and more kids are dropping, tennis rackets for pickleball paddles, and I think soon it won't become a sport that you hear about being played in the villages, but it's going to be played at your local tennis center. And so with that, the energy, I mean, you just watch some of our matches and like at times, you watch the dinking and from afar you'd think, oh, they're just standing there like dinking at the kitchen line. But the expertise that it takes to get it over those lines, and then you turn into these incredible rallies with players hitting it as hard as they can, and these huge yells and screams of trying to intimidate your opponent. Like it's unlike anything else. You're only separated by 20 feet max when you're in the middle of a match. Obviously, when you're serving, it's a little bit further, but they're so close together when they're playing these matches. It's impossible not to get fired up by either your partner or the people you're playing against. And so, obviously, we want to be respectful of the play because we're so close. It's a very tight quarters that we're shooting in. But I think it's impossible not to, feel something when you go back and watch some of these matches. Like we had our men's doubles match in New York a couple weeks ago was incredible. We had two players who had come out of the qualifier draw, were really, unknown on the pro level, and then they're playing against Jack Monroe for a gold medal. And Jack and Aiden Shank, who was in his first gold medal too, came out and they were so fired up, and the energy it's infectious, truly. So I think that the sport it brings that energy to it, whether you expect it or not, every single match. And I think our players do a great job of bringing the intensity because they mean it. It's not trying to sell a product. It's genuine every time they do it. So I'd like to say like, yeah, we're, the WWE where it's, they're playing to a crowd. And sometimes some players do. Some players are good at playing to the crowd, but it's genuine. They all want to win really badly, and they're all so good. And you try to go out there and play, and you learn very quickly that these players are at another level from anything you've ever seen. And they're truly, great athletes. So the energy that they bring is all genuine, and it's really easy to see how much fun these events are to participate in and watch from home.
What is Monroe up to? Like by since the start of 2025, is it eight gold medals or something like this? He's on a total tear. The spectacular nature of athleticism that plays out on court during points. What is the one point that you have been most blown away during a broadcast that you canvassed to where you go back and you're like, how did they do that out there?
Oh, like every year we have a recap show of the year and the year that was. And so the no I mean one play is tough. There was an incredible point that Chris Hayworth won his singles match in New York last year, where he went around the post, and it was just something else. I mean, the first time you see like some of these spectacular tweeners and they work out is something else. I don't know if I could tell you a particular point that I think is just, the best from what I've seen, but the two matches that I think were the most fun were Will Sobek in New York. He got his first win, and we call that the best match ever played in men's singles at the very least. An incredible comeback from him to go to a tiebreak and win his first gold medal when he was just 17 years old was an unbelievable moment, and the New York crowd was incredible in the shadow of Billie Jean King. You couldn't script it any better than that. And then last year we had an incredible women's singles match in Newport Beach, actually, with Megan Fudge winning, and every game went to 20 some odd points of rally scoring. So it was just an absolute marathon. And I think those are the matches that keep you coming back. And those are the matches that we want to showcase because that's what changes the conversation about pickleball in this country. Tennis has '07 Federer, Nadal, or Isner in that marathon match. And I think, from an entertainment value, while those are maybe more storied in terms of historical relevance for some people, I think the entertainment value is just as strong in some of these pickleball matches. And I really think that people should give it more of a chance because I think they'd come away very surprised and very happy that they spent their time watching our product.
How far along do you feel like the sports community that consumes sports on television and even goes to events is in terms of getting into that mindset that you're talking about to where pickleball can go and where it's been in through the work that you're doing and your team, how far along do you think it is until you get to where you really know where this product is capable of reaching?
I think I think it's honestly it's right there. I think we just we want more opportunity to show it off. Like I think the everyone talks about the Olympics, and maybe not this one, but maybe in the next one or next two. I think people just need to give it a chance. Just turn it on. I really think that it's there from an entertainment standpoint. The matches are relatively quick. It doesn't take you a lot of time to tune in. The points are fast, the games are quick, and the energy is great. I think in such a small, intimate setting, you can really feel the energy, and it doesn't get lost by how loud and excited the crowd can get in during and post points. So I really think that it's not a matter of if pickleball can get there. I think it's when, and I really think it's right there. I think you put this sport on ABC, on CBS in a prime time window, I think people would be really impressed with what they saw, and I think they'd come back for more.
I feel like people would also be really impressed to know how much planning goes into a broadcast when it comes to what you're going to be doing coming up here in Southern California between July 2nd and July 6th. I encourage everybody to go check that out. APP. I do work in some tennis, I must say. I do work on the
Yeah.
Challenger Circuit, calling some events, but I do love pickleball as well. APP Tour Television and ESPN2. You can watch it, and obviously Newport Open. Get out there and support all these players and what they're going after. But when it comes to the planning of a broadcast, how expansive is it? How much can you plan for? And how much is just the story are the players and what happens out there and then telling that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily at this point, I feel like I've seen every single player at least once, or at least I'm familiar with the names at the very least of all 250 pros that probably come to an event. Nothing really surprises me in terms of maybe the results surprise me, but a lot of names, it's not surprising. I think that's really part of the planning is just knowing pairings change so fast. So, it may be a different pairing for this week that someone's, trying out. So this all comes in weeks and weeks in advance. I'm always monitoring um, our admissions list and who's signed up for the event and who they're signed up to play with. Generally, those don't go final until this week, but obviously there's so much planning in advance and we can prepare for, our champions that we can guess will be back, like the Sophia Sevings, the Megan Fudges, Susanna Bars, obviously Jack Monroe and Will Howes have had a great year as well. Bobby Oshiro in that list too. So there are some names that you can anticipate at the top. But that's the fun of these events, right? Is we play these draws out almost all the way in full each day. So on Thursday, when men's and women's singles kicks off, I don't know who's going to be playing on Sunday until we're playing on Thursday, and we're streaming Thursday live. So I'm following this draw as much as you are at home and trying to catch up. Like, whoa, where did that come from? And that's so much fun, and that's where we really get to lean on our talent with Dom and Chad because for the most part, if they haven't been on our stream, I haven't really been able to watch them unless I get a chance to watch them while they play, or maybe on in other opportunities or past events. But Dom and Chad, they know all these players so well. They know their game. They've coached them. They know their coaches. They know everything about them. They know the paddles they're playing, their footwork, their strategies, and nothing surprises them. I mean, maybe a result surprises them, but they have a good reason for every time someone can come through a draw. So, planning, we plan as much as we can, but we never assume, we never put anything in ink. We play the matches out that are in front of us and we give everybody a fair shake at what we think is going to happen. We've seen a ton of upsets. Like, you see players come through qualifiers, like I talked about in New York, where some players just come to the opportunity and you see some surprising exits. And once the top one or two seeds is out, it's anybody's game and it's anybody's guess. And so following the brackets is so much fun. And then, come Sunday, we have plenty of time to do a little bit of homework and talk to the players if we haven't been able to tell their story before and be able to, properly introduce them to the United States. So, we have some great players coming through. Pei Chuan Kao is coming back. She had a great win in Fort Lauderdale. A player who wasn't really known super well on, in the professional circuit, but internationally, very well known for how good of a player she is. Um, so there's plenty of opportunity on these tours to win, and I think that's another great thing is that as many great players as we have today, the next generation of players is prepping and training and waiting for any moment to make a jump and win. So that's the beauty of a young sport like this is that the people who we've seen at the top now may not be there for very long because the next generation is coming quickly, and then the generation after that will be even faster. So I think as far as planning goes, I do my best, and then from there, it's really quick, some quick research to find out a little bit more about these people that I can show off, and then after the match, I'll have a conversation and see if I can learn a little bit more.
Speaking of conversations, how much do you communicate with your team, whether that's the talent or those, maybe it's a technical director or graphics, in terms of you as the producer during a live broadcast?
Constantly. I think that's the number one way to have a strong broadcast is not only just talking during the broadcast, but I have a text chain with our talent. We're always in lockstep. Talking about other assignments that maybe they're working on, where they are this week for training. If they're doing anything else, like we have a great relationship. We're a family. We're all really good friends and really close. And I think that's the entire APP, whether it's the marketing team, the operations team, our rules officials, our volunteer coordinator. We meet, multiple times a week, and we talk, outside of that as well, because we are a family and we're friends. And when you travel as much together as we do, and you're on the road for a week at a time, 4 to 6 weeks, um, in conjunction, and you get a couple back to backs, like we've been doing this I've been here for about 2.5 years on the APP. And when you become family like that, you're naturally going to have conversation. But when it comes to in the broadcast, I mean, I'm constantly communicating with our technical director, with our graphics, thinking about one step ahead at all times, right? The talent are focused on the now because I told them what was coming up 2 minutes ago. So I always have to be looking forward, right? With our TD, with our graphics, here's the next plan. Here's our traffic coming up. And I think that's the best way to be effective, because in the truck it can get chaotic, and communication is truly the number one thing to a successful broadcast. And even when your communication is great, there may be a drop ball somewhere, there may be an error, but being ahead of it and being communicative is uh, the root cause of anything that happens is either lack of or great communication is the reason that everything happens when you see it on TV, whether it's a pickleball event or the World Series or what have you. So I try to be communicating with everybody as much as humanly possible. I try to keep who I'm talking to at one given time to a minimum, so our talent don't have my voice ringing in their ear constantly, and they're able to at least talk about what's going on. Um, but so much of it is about communication, and then at the same time, also letting people experiment. Like I said earlier, there are no rules. So, with our technical director or our graphics, I want them to take chances responsibly, but I want them to test things out, because this is such a great opportunity in this sport to build something new, because nothing's been built before. So I want to invigorate our talent, the talented folks that are in the production truck, to have new ideas, and even with the operations folks, like a new camera that we want to test out, or we have video review, and we introduced video review to being put up, broadcast to the crowd that's in the arena, putting it on our LED. Like, that was a great idea. So all of these things that come through are just because people said, "Hey, I have an idea," and there are no bad ideas. It's just that we want to be able to, um, push the limits on what we're doing. And so, I want to give people creative license within reason, and then also be communicative when there's certain things that we have to knock out. So that's a long way of saying all the time. but also not all the time because I want people to be able to think independently and do their jobs too.
And hearing you say all of that, if you were to tell the kid that graduated from Marquette what he'd be doing right now, what would that kid from Marquette say?
Man, I think that kid would be so excited to know that number one, I took a chance on a sport that I didn't know existed when I was at Marquette, let alone before I took the job. Um, and I think the opportunity that I was afforded, again by our team at Intersport, to produce live content is something that I don't think I would have been able to do today in another, whether it's a network or group, because there's so much. This culture of paying your dues, right? And it's important because you have to learn every role. Um, and it goes for any job. But I think that being given this opportunity to produce live sports on ESPN, ESPN2, CBS Sports Network, FS1, ESPN Plus, name your partner that we've sent broadcast to, and then even on YouTube, and being able to have my resume in a lot of ways live for anybody to see at any moment. That's how it works in broadcast, has been really such a joy and such a blessing. And I'm really, really grateful to be able to do this every day because I'm having a blast. And I think that the experience that I've had is so invaluable, things I could have never learned by, watching a YouTube video or even just watching live sports. You think you know it when you're watching that ESPN game. Me and my buddies, we'd look and like, oh, that graphic was bad, or that was a terrible dissolve or whatever. And then you're in the truck and there's so many reasons that something could have happened, or, maybe it was just an idea that you had that didn't really work out. It's like, okay, on to the next one. You have to have a short memory sometimes. So I think, I'm, living a dream. And right now, with pickleball where it is, I'm so excited to be on the ground floor of something that we all believe in so much on the APP. And I know so many people believe in it, universally, whether, in this country and the expansion internationally. So, I think that kid would be really proud. And, I hope that I can continue to do this.
You're having a blast. You said that. I had a blast having you on in this conversation. And as we wrap this thing up, I want everybody to know Newport Open, July 2nd through the 6th. You got Championship Court, it's on ESPN Plus. You got APPTV on YouTube. There's the Players Court there. You've got ESPN2 as well as a partner. So many ways to consume the content that is headed in part by Hank Greening and his great team, who is producer APPTV. Hank, this was so fun. I know you just got off the airplane, but what a way to blast off a fun week with you here in Southern California by having you on and really get a behind the scenes look of your journey and what your team is doing. This was a blast. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Brian. Again, yeah, come out and see our event at the Tennis and Pickleball Club at Newport Beach, or as Brian said, check it out on ESPN Plus, YouTube, and then ESPN2 on Monday night. So, been an absolute thrill to be on. Thank you for having me, Brian. Really.